$500 million. That's how much Dubai is losing every single day, leading out of one of the richest cities on the planet, while the government that runs it hasn't fired a single missile. Now here's what most people think they know about this conflict. Iran is attacking. Israel and America are fighting back. The Gulf states are caught in the middle. It's messy, it's dangerous, and eventually someone will negotiate a ceasefire, and things will slowly go back to normal. That's the version of events most people are walking around with right now. And look, that version isn't wrong exactly, but it is dangerously incomplete, because what is actually happening in the UAE right now is not a side story to this conflict. It is the whole story. Iran has figured out something that changes the rules of modern warfare completely. You don't need to defeat your enemy on the battlefield. You just need to make their economy bleed. Dubai International Airport, the single busiest international aviation hub on the planet, is closed. The airspace that used to be so congested with planes you could barely track them on flight radar, empty. Almost completely empty. Fujairah port, the port that was specifically built to bypass the Strait of Hormuz so UAE could export oil even during a crisis, is burning. Jebel port, the largest port in the entire Middle East, is losing $500 million. Iran has fired 285 ballistic missiles at UAE, 1,567 drones, 15 cruise missiles since this conflict began, and UAE has fired back exactly zero, not one retaliatory strike of any kind. Now here's the question that should be keeping you up at night. Why is one of the wealthiest, most modern states in the world, a country with Patriot missile systems, THAAD defense batteries, and the full military backing of the United States, sitting completely still while it loses $500 million a day? Here's what I'm going to show you today. Iran has built a trap so perfectly designed that every single option available to UAE makes the situation worse. Fight back and lose everything. Stay silent and keep bleeding $500 million every single day. There is no good move on this board, and that is not an accident. That is exactly what Iran intended. First, exactly how Iran is destroying Dubai's economy, not randomly, systematically, with a very specific playbook that targets the things UAE cannot afford to lose. Second, why UAE literally cannot fight back. 5 reasons, each one more devastating than the last. By the time we get through all 5, you will understand why silence is not cowardice. It is the only option that doesn't make things catastrophically worse. And third, what happens to the rest of the world if Dubai falls. Because this is not just a UAE problem. Dubai connects Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Its airport, its ports, its financial systems, they are the plumbing of global trade. When that plumbing breaks, everyone feels it, including you. $500 million a day, no shots fired, no way out. Let's get into it. Let's start with what Iran is actually doing here, because most people watching this conflict from the outside see a series of drone attacks and missile strikes and think this is just chaos. That is completely wrong. What Iran is executing right now is one of the most calculated economic warfare strategies ever deployed in a modern conflict, and once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Here is the core of Iran's strategy. Iran cannot defeat America in a direct military confrontation. Everyone knows this. Iran knows this better than anyone. Iran doesn't have the firepower to go head-to-head with the US military and win. But Iran figured out something far more dangerous than firepower. If you cannot defeat your enemy, destroy what makes them want to stay. America is in the Gulf because the Gulf is valuable. Oil exports, trade routes, financial systems, strategic partnerships with wealthy, stable allies. Take away the stability, take away the wealth, make the Gulf so expensive to protect that America starts asking whether protecting it is worth the cost. That is the playbook. And the first target in that playbook, Dubai International Airport. Think about what Dubai Airport actually is for a moment. This is the single most connected aviation hub on the planet. Every flight from India going to Europe, Dubai. Every connecting route from Asia to Africa, Dubai. Every business traveler, every cargo flight, every supply chain that moves through the air between 3 continents, Dubai. Before this conflict escalated, the airspace around Dubai was so congested you could watch it on flight radar and barely count the planes. Now look at that same airspace. Empty. A drone struck a fuel tank near the airport perimeter. The explosion triggered a massive fire, black smoke visible for miles, and within hours, every international flight operation at Dubai Airport was suspended. Dozens of international carriers diverted flights midair to alternative airports. The world's busiest aviation hub offline. That is not chaos, that is precision economic targeting. But Iran didn't stop at the airport. The second target, Fujairah port. Here's why Fujairah matters. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow waterway through which nearly a third of the world's oil supply passes. Iran sits directly beside it. In any conflict scenario, Iran can threaten to close the strait and suddenly global oil prices explode. UAE knew this risk decades ago. So they built Fujairah port on the other side of the country, on the Gulf of Oman, specifically so that oil exports could bypass the Strait of Hormuz entirely. Even if Iran blocked the strait, Fujairah meant UAE could keep exporting. Iran is now attacking Fujairah directly. Every escape route for Gulf oil exports is now under fire. Every alternative UAE built to protect itself from Iranian pressure, Iran is now targeting it specifically. And then there is Jebel port, the largest port in the entire Middle East, the port through which an enormous share of regional trade flows every single day. $500 million lost every single day it is disrupted. Let's put that in perspective. That is $5 billion every week. That is not a rounding error. That is the systematic destruction of an economy in slow motion in real time. And the total scale of what Iran has unleashed on UAE since this conflict began: 285 ballistic missiles, 1,567 drones, 15 cruise missiles, aimed at the ports, the airports, the oil facilities, the logistics infrastructure that makes UAE the economic engine of the entire Gulf region. Iran's message to the world is not complicated. We can shut down global trade. We can empty the world's busiest airport. We can burn the ports. We can cut the oil routes. And we can do all of it without ever declaring war on a single country. That is what economic warfare looks like in 2025. But here is the part that should genuinely alarm you. UAE knows exactly what Iran is doing. They can see the pattern, they understand the playbook completely, and they still cannot do a single thing to stop it. So now you understand what Iran is doing, and the natural question, the question every single person asks when they see this is simple. Why doesn't UAE just hit back? They have one of the most advanced air defense systems in the entire region. They have the full backing of the United States military, and they are being attacked every single day. Why is there no retaliation? UAE is staying silent because it is trapped in a trap that Iran spent years designing. And every single exit from that trap leads somewhere worse than where they are right now. Let me show you exactly how that trap works. Reason 1. Retaliation triggers total destruction. Right now Iran is attacking UAE's economic infrastructure. Airports, ports, fuel tanks. Painful but survivable. The moment UAE fires back, that calculation changes completely. Iran has already demonstrated it can launch 1,567 drones at UAE in a single conflict. That is not a warning shot. That is a capability demonstration. Iran is showing UAE exactly what full escalation looks like before pulling the trigger on it. Think about what 500 drones aimed at a single target means. UAE's air defense systems are extraordinary, but no defense system on Earth intercepts everything. Some get through, always, and when they get through in downtown Dubai, the consequences are unimaginable, not just physical destruction. The complete collapse of Dubai's image as a safe, stable, world-class city. The tourists don't come back after that. The investors don't come back after that. The airlines don't come back after that. Iran doesn't need to destroy Dubai. It just needs to make Dubai feel destroyable. Reason 2. UAE's economy cannot survive escalation. Here is the fundamental difference between Iran and UAE that makes this trap so effective. Iran is a war economy. It has been under sanctions for decades. It has built its entire infrastructure around the assumption of conflict. Its economy does not depend on international investment, global tourism, or open trade routes. It is designed to absorb punishment and keep functioning. UAE is the exact opposite. UAE is an economic miracle built entirely on stability. Every single pillar of the UAE economy requires the world to believe that Dubai is safe, open, and functioning normally. Emirates Airline alone is losing $100 million every single day. Already, right now, without UAE firing a single shot, investors have already lost over $5 billion since this conflict escalated. And that is the damage from simply being near a conflict. Imagine the damage from being inside one. If UAE retaliates, foreign investment flees, tourism collapses, the airlines stop flying indefinitely, the financial institutions that chose Dubai over Singapore and London and New York start reconsidering that choice. Iran can absorb a retaliatory strike. UAE cannot absorb the economic consequences of making one. Reason 3. UAE's military was never built for this fight. People assume that because UAE has advanced military hardware, it can use that hardware offensively. That assumption is wrong. UAE has Patriot missile batteries, some of the most sophisticated air defense technology on the planet. Every single piece of that technology was designed for one purpose: to intercept incoming threats. None of it was designed to project power deep into Iranian territory. UAE never built the offensive strike capability, the long-range precision missiles, the strategic bomber fleet, the deep penetration attack infrastructure that a genuine retaliatory campaign against Iran would require, because UAE never imagined it would need to. Iran knew this, and it factored it into the design of the trap. Reason 4. The Abraham Accords locked UAE's position. In 2020, UAE normalized relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords, a formal alliance between UAE and the state that Iran considers its primary enemy in the region. Iran now treats UAE as part of the Israel-US alliance structure, not a neutral party, not a bystander, a participant. And here's the trap within the trap. UAE cannot distance itself from the Abraham Accords without betraying its own strategic alliances and signaling weakness to every future partner. There is no diplomatic exit from this position. Reason 5. The US security umbrella cuts both ways. UAE's ultimate defense strategy depends on the United States. If Iran escalates to a truly catastrophic level of attack, America responds militarily. That guarantee is real, but that same guarantee creates a paralysis. Because as long as the US is handling the military response, UAE has no independent control over when this ends. UAE cannot negotiate its own ceasefire with Iran. So here is where UAE stands right now. Can't fight back, escalation destroys the economy. Can't stay silent, the bleeding continues at $500 million a day. Every door leads somewhere worse. That is a perfectly designed trap, and the most disturbing part of all of this. The trap doesn't just affect UAE. Here is where most people switch off. They hear UAE conflict and they think that's a Middle East problem, and that instinct is completely understandable and completely wrong, because Dubai is not just a city, the kind that billions of people depend on every single day without ever thinking about it, and right now it is stopping working. Let's start with the aviation network. Dubai International Airport does not just serve the UAE, it serves the world. Every major flight corridor between Asia and Europe passes through it. Every business traveler, every cargo shipment, every supply chain that moves through the air between 3 continents, it all flows through one hub. Dozens of international carriers have diverted midair. Supply chains that depend on next-day air freight from Dubai to European distribution centers broken. And this is not just an inconvenience for travelers. Time-sensitive electronic shipments pile up at alternative airports that were never designed to handle this volume. The disruption radiates outward, into every country connected to that network, which is almost every country on Earth. Now let's talk about oil. Nearly a third of the world's entire oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. That is the energy supply of Europe, Asia, and large parts of the developing world moving through a narrow waterway that Iran sits directly beside. Iran is now attacking Fujairah port, the port UAE specifically built to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. The alternative that was supposed to guarantee oil kept flowing even in a crisis. It is burning. Which means means both the primary oil route and the backup oil route are now simultaneously under threat. The moment either of those closes completely, global oil prices don't rise gradually. They spike immediately, violently, and oil prices don't just affect what you pay at the petrol pump. They affect the cost of manufacturing, the cost of shipping, the cost of food production and distribution. Everything that moves, everything that is made, everything that is grown and transported and delivered, all of it is connected to the price of oil moving through that waterway. Iran does not need to close the Strait of Hormuz completely to cause a global crisis. It just needs to make the world believe it might. That uncertainty alone is enough to send prices spiraling. And then there is the money. Dubai is not just a transit hub for people and goods. It is a transit hub for capital. Billions of dollars in international investment, regional banking, sovereign wealth fund activity, and emerging market finance flows through Dubai's financial system every single day. Investors have already lost over $5 billion since this conflict escalated. That number will not stay at $5 billion, and capital does not stay in unstable places. It moves away from the infrastructure projects and development funds that Gulf capital was building across Asia and Africa. The economic shockwave does not stop at UAE's borders. Here is the bigger picture. What Iran has demonstrated right now in real time is that economic infrastructure is a legitimate and devastatingly effective war target. These are the targets of modern warfare, and Dubai is not the only city on earth that fits this profile. Singapore, Rotterdam, Hong Kong. Every major global hub that connects trade routes, aviation networks, and financial systems, they are all watching what is happening in Dubai right now and asking the same quiet, uncomfortable question. Could this happen here? The answer, as Iran has just proven, is yes. This is not a regional conflict anymore. It never really was. Iran doesn't need to defeat UAE on the battlefield to change the world. It just needs Dubai to stop being worth defending. And at $500 million a day, it is getting closer to that number with every single sunrise. So let's bring this back to where we started. $500 million every single day. When you heard that number at the beginning of this video, it sounded shocking. Now you know what that number actually means. It means a trap so perfectly designed that the richest, most modern state in the Gulf cannot move in any direction without making things worse. It means an economic warfare strategy so precise that one drone and one fuel tank can shut down the world's busiest aviation hub overnight. Iran did not win this by being stronger than UAE. It won this by understanding something that most military strategists are still catching up to. That in the modern world, the most powerful weapon is not a missile. The most powerful weapon is the ability to make stability feel fragile. Because the moment stability feels fragile, the investors leave, the airlines leave, the tourists leave, the capital leaves. You do not need to destroy a city to defeat it. You just need to make the world stop trusting it. The world is watching Dubai right now and seeing something it has never quite seen before. The most ambitious city ever built, caught in a trap it cannot escape, bleeding in slow motion while the entire global economy holds its breath and waits to see what breaks first. The trap or Dubai. Iran doesn't need to defeat UAE on the battlefield. It just needs Dubai to stop being worth defending.